They weren't just ignored, they were measured, dismissed, and placed quietly outside the frame of what people expected. That is, until the rackets were in their hands. Until that moment, Yalin moved through the world under a hood not to shield from cold, but from the heavy stares, the silent assumptions, the weight of being where people thought he didn't belong. The iron gates of Hawthorne Tennis Academy groaned open as their father's rust-flecked Ford Ranger rolled in, its tires cracking against polished gravel like an uninvited guest on sacred ground. Everything about the campus whispered precision. Hedges were manicured like topiary sculptures, the buildings so crisp they looked pressed, not built. Gregory Bryant parked beside a line of glossy black SUVs and turned off the engine. "All right," he said, his tone light but grounded. "Ya, ready?" Khalil didn't answer with words. His eyes were locked on the courts beyond the entrance, where the surface glowed red beneath the morning haze. "Is that grass?" he murmured. "Clay?" Yolan answered flatly, adjusting his grip on the strap of their shared tennis bag. "Clay," their dad repeated, letting the word roll slow and proud. "About time y'all felt that under your feet." They stepped out of the truck, worn sneakers, meeting manicured walkways. Heads turned. A woman dressed head-to-toe in white tennis gear looked up from her tablet and scanned them not cruelly, just curiously, like they didn't fit the frame she carried in her mind. Two skinny black boys in plain t-shirts and city miles on their soles weren't what she pictured when she thought of future champions. A tall boy with a crisp Hawthorne visor leaned toward the girl beside him. She giggled. Yolan heard the phrase, "Scholarship kids float like dust in the air, too quiet to be called out, too loud to ignore." Khalil didn't flinch. Their father didn't break stride. Either just walked them up the flagstone path, the heavy tennis bag hanging from one shoulder like he'd carried their dreams before they could lift them themselves. "Keep your heads up," he told them, voice low and firm. "Ain't nobody here better than you not where it counts." Inside the registration tent, a staff member with a too bright smile greeted them. "You must be the Bryant's dorm B2, lower level. You'll be with the rest of the junior circuit." Her words sounded warm, but her glance drifted down to their sneakers. Their bag, the plain cotton, stretched across their shoulders. An inventory, quiet but thorough. "Got all their paperwork," Gregory said, sliding a thick folder across the table. "Tournament stats, USTA rankings, school letters, medical forms, all of it." The woman's smile twitched smaller. "It's rare we get siblings in at this level, especially at this age." Yalin wanted to ask what she meant by that. Khalil gave him a tiny shake of the head. "Let it go." They were handed lanyards, a campus map, and a thick rulebook. As they stepped back into the sunlight, a tall blond boy raced by, laughing so loud it broke the hush of the morning. He didn't even glance at them. Khalil watched him disappear down the path. "Guess we missed orientation on how to belong," Gillan muttered. Khalil didn't smile. They passed the main courts on the way to their dorm. Players were already grinding out rallies. One girl with a high ponytail hit a blistering cross-court forehand, her sneakers squeaking across the clay. A coach clapped. Parents nodded from shaded benches. "That's what money buys," Yolan said under his breath. That, and lessons since before they could spell tennis. But Khalil wasn't listening. He was already reaching into their bag, fingers curling around a roll of grip tape. "Doesn't mean they grind harder." Dorm B was quiet. Their assigned room held to bunks. No roommates had arrived yet. They chose the beds by the window, set down their few belongings, and sat without speaking. The silence felt like something solid. "Man," Yalin finally whispered, "we really here?" Khalil smiled slow. "Yeah, we here." Indicator? The lines on the court were so faded you had to guess where the service box ended. The nets sagged like tired ropes. Their dad patched their gear with duct tape, not sponsorships. Still, they won. Not every time, but enough. Enough to get here. But getting here didn't mean the welcome mat was rolled out, and that unspoken truth, it was coming faster than either of them could brace for. The energy shifted when the matchups were announced. Yalin and Khalil had trained in obscurity, but now, they were sharing the court with Mason and Zoe, two players who didn't just own the spotlight, they danced in it. Their court looked more like a promo shoot than a practice drill. Chest bumps after rallies, showy spin serves, exaggerated laughter echoing like stage cues. Zoe grinned after every point. Mason pumped his fist after even a let ball. It was theater. But Sierra, she kept sneaking glances at Yolan, not long stares, just brief, deliberate flicks of the eye. A second too long. A curl of the lip that wasn't quite a smile. She was measuring him, and when the moment came, she didn't blink. During a baseline drill, Yolan sent a deep backhand down the line, precise and clean, skimming the clay. Sierra stopped mid-swing, hand raised like a red flag. "Out," she called coolly. Coach Wexler, watching from the sideline, raised an eyebrow. Yolan didn't flinch. "That was 2 inches in," he said, voice calm, eyes steady. Sierra folded her arms, indifferent. Wexler strolled over. He squatted, checked the mark. "In," he announced, caught the line. Sierra didn't respond, didn't even argue, just rolled her eyes and stalked back to position. Yolan said nothing. He just reset his stance. Back straight, breath even. During the break, Coach Wexler sat at the far bench, watching the players fan out like birds let loose. Some kids stretched, others filmed themselves for Instagram stories. The Trasks held court at a picnic table, laughing too loudly. Yalan and Khalil stood quietly near the wall, shaded by the tall fence, sipping from a single bottle of water. You see them? Wexler asked the assistant coach beside him. Coach Miles, a young guy with a man bun and aviators, nodded without looking up. Yeah, real clean, real quiet. Too, they've got discipline. Wexler shifted. Where'd they train? Miles shrugged. Dad coached them. Georgia. Outdoor courts. Cracked concrete, chain link fences. The kind of places where tennis don't happen unless someone brings the net in a backpack. Wexler nodded. Explains the grit. His eyes drifted to the far court where Caleb Trask pointed at Halil's beat-up Nikes, snickering with a circle of players. Wexler didn't like that. He didn't like noise. His camps ran smooth. Reputation built on discipline, not drama. But whatever this thing was between the Trasks and the Bryant sit had the scent of smoke. And at Hawthorne, a whiff could become a wildfire. Let's keep an eye on it, he said, rising from the bench. That evening in the common room, movie night buzzed with popcorn and lowlights. Kids sprawled across beanbags and couches, arguing over the remote. Caleb and Sierra had claimed the main couch like Royal Ty Mason, lingered nearby, unsure whether to be loyal or liked. Yalan and Khalil entered late, moving toward an open spot near the wall. As they passed, Caleb leaned back with a smirk. Hope it's not an HD movie, he said just loud enough. Don't want to give anyone a headache. Laughter burst from Sierra, loud and intentional. Mason chuckled, confused, following the noise. Yalan stopped, didn't speak, just turned and looked. What? Caleb said, palms up. It's a joke. No one else laughed. You don't belong here, Caleb added, quieter now, voice low but direct. This place is for real players, not charity cases. The room hushed. Someone turned up the volume on the TV, but it couldn't drown the weight in the air. Yalan stepped closer, his voice low and sharp. We'll see who belongs when we're on the same court. Caleb scoffed. You won't be. They don't waste ranked players on warm-up matches. Yalan gave the faintest shrug. Then you better pray they don't. As the twins walked away, Coach Wexler, who'd been crossing the hallway behind them, paused mid-step. He didn't say a word, but his jaw tightened. Silence had a cost. Tomorrow would show it. By morning, the heat had already taken hold, stretching its weight across the courts like a second skin. Sweat towels were out before drills began. Hats drooped, sunscreen stung eyes, but none of that could cool what was building. Wexler stood with his clipboard near court 1. Serve and return, he called. 1 serve, rotate, tempo fast, focus sharp. Keelan stepped onto court 3. Khalil was 2 courts down, and across from Yalan of course stood Caleb. He bounced the ball, wrist loose, expression cocky. Don't flinch, Caleb said, low and smug. Wouldn't want the sun to blind you. Yalan didn't reply. Caleb tossed the ball high and unleashed a wild serve, wide and loud. It cracked the back fence. Fault, Wexler called. Yalan reset. Caleb didn't hesitate on the second try. This serve came in hot, bending low and sharp. Yalan caught it, redirected it deep to the opposite corner. Caleb chased, barely scraping it back. Yalan met it at the net tap point. Wexler marked it without a word. Caleb was breathing harder now, masking it with a smirk. That was lucky, he muttered. Yalan ignored him. Third serve. Caleb drove it low, right at Yalan's feet. A shot, not illegal, but definitely sending a message. Yalan shifted, slid, returned a low drive that clipped the net cord and rolled just over. Winner. Wexler's voice rose. Nice hands. Bryant, across the courts. Sierra scowled. Caleb slammed his racket into his palm. He's cherry-picking, he snapped, waiting for mistakes. That's not real tennis. Wexler turned slowly. Winning tennis is real tennis. Back to the line. The next several exchanges were controlled. Exec Yalan didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. But everyone saw it, the tilt in the air, the unspoken statement rising with each return. We're not here for your comfort. 2 courts away, Khalil wrapped up his drill session with Arjun, a quiet kid with good instincts. After a slick double rally, Arjun offered a small thumbs up. Nice touch. You play doubles much? Only with my brother, Khalil replied. You move the same, Arjun observed. Grew up like that. They walked off the court. Not friends yet, but something better, respect. Sierra waited by the gate. Cute, she said as they passed. Got yourself a little fan club now. Khalil stopped. You say that like we're not on the same schedule, she scoffed. A couple decent volleys doesn't mean you're contenders. My brother's nationally ranked, he's being scouted, and we're the background story. Khalil asked. Calm. Maybe, she said. Backgrounds don't miss, Khalil answered, turning away. She flinched just slightly, but enough. Coach Wexler called break. The twins sat together under the shade of a tent, passing a single bottle of water back and forth. You see his serve? Yalan asked. You feel her attitude? Khalil replied. They both laughed. Tired, but not small. Not this time. Back in the office near the admin building, Wexler met with two senior coaches. Bryant's one said, "You seeing what I'm seeing?" Wexler nodded. "But I'm also watching the Trasks want us to talk to their parents." One offered. Wexler paused. "Not yet. Let the brackets speak. But if this keeps up, I'll deal with it." His words were steady, but something about the tightness in his eyes said he already knew things would escalate before they calmed. That night, the dorm halls were quieter. Even the Trasks were subdued. But just before lights out, a plain sheet of white paper appeared, taped to the Bryant twins' door. Marker strokes in thick, uneven lines. "Don't get too comfortable. Court doesn't lie." Yalin peeled it off. "Read it once," passed it to Halil. Halil read, then crumpled it into a ball and tossed it into the trash. "Let M talk," he said. "We'll speak louder." They didn't have to wait long. The weekend draw was coming in. The court told the truth. Later that night, after lights out, the room was quiet except for the soft buzz of an old fan. Yalin pulled the blanket over his head and held the phone to his ear. Khalil sat nearby, twisting his fingers, listening. Their dad picked up after 2 rings. "You boys good?" Yalin sighed. "Yeah, just tired. Long day," Khalil added. Gregory Bryant's voice was thick with fatigue but alert. "Sounds like something's weighing on you." The boys were quiet, then Yalin spoke. "It's not the drills. It's not the dros, it's them. The way they act, the way they look at us." There was a pause. Then their dad gave a small laugh, worn but not bitter. "Tennis ain't where they expect to see you. Not yet. But you knew that when you laced up?" "I didn't think it'd be this loud," Khalil said. "Even when they're quiet, they're saying it." "Let them," Gregory said. "You didn't come here to be liked. You came to be great. Let your game speak. And if they still got something to say after that, that's their noise, not yours." Yalin pressed the phone tighter to his ear. "Feels like they're waiting for us to crack." "Then don't," Gregory said. "Every time you stay calm, every time you win a point, they lose twice." He paused. "You remember what I told you when the net broke?" Khalil smiled, faintly. "You fixed it with a jump rope." "And what did I say after?" Yalin answered softly. "Doesn't matter how pretty the court is, just matters if the ball comes back." His father chuckled. "That's right." The morning sun hadn't even broken the horizon when Yalin and Khalil laced up their shoes in silence. No alarms needed, just instinct and rhythm. They stepped onto the Dukeist court, cones already laid out, rackets in hand, the cadence of sneakers on concrete, tapping like a quiet war drum. They ran their drills in perfect sync footwork, shadow swings, recovery moves as if the court were a canvas and they were painting their intentions on it with every motion. While the rest of the campers stirred groggily in their bunks or blinked at the bathroom lights, the Bryant twins had already carved out 2 complete circuits. Coach Wexler noticed. He didn't call out, didn't nod, just stood at a distance, his arms folded and his coffee untouched, his eyes tracing the lines of 2 boys who carried more than just ambition in their stride. At breakfast, the atmosphere had shifted slightly, but unmistakably. Gone were the half-hidden chuckles, the casual digs whispered across juice cups. Instead, silence pressed around the table like a secret waiting to be spoken. A few eyes lingered longer than they had before. Some had witnessed the serve battle the previous afternoon, saw Caleb getting dismantled shot by shot. No one said the word, but respect had entered the room, and invited maybe but present nonetheless. Sierra kept her space, lips tight around her fork, but the way her gaze cut toward Yolin now wasn't smug. It was sharp, focused, curious. That afternoon, Coach Wexler taped the tournament bracket to the main bulletin board in the cafeteria. It wasn't just paper, it was prophecy. Within minutes, the kids crowded around it like moths drawn to flame. Khalil shouldered through the crowd first, scanning the names like a detective. His eyes locked onto theirs. Team 4, Yalin Bryant, and Khalil Bryant. Then, he kept reading. Their first-round opponents, Team 5, Caleb Trask, and Sierra Trask. For a second his breath hitched. He looked up just as Yolin arrived beside him. No words, just eye contact. Then Sierra's laughter rang out behind them, short and sharp like a snapped rubber band. "Looks like they're giving us a warm-up," she said. Caleb stayed quiet, rolling his shoulders like a boxer entering the ring. Coach Wexler leaned on the far wall, sipping coffee he hadn't touched, eyes locked not on the paper but on the faces. Every reaction was a page in a playbook he had long since memorized. Back in the dorms, the twins didn't panic. They started sitting across from each other on opposite bunks. They spoke in clear, clipped phrases, their tone as focused as a military briefing. "We stay clean," Yalin said. "New flash. New flex. Just tempo," Khalil nodded. "Make her work the net." He leans left, we go wide. "This isn't about style, it's about space." They weren't angry. They weren't anxious. They were ready. "Dad always said it's not about who they are. It's about who we choose to be." Jalen's voice softened. "Then let's be the reason they remember this summer." That night, long after the camp fell quiet, Yalin sat by the dorm window, staring out into the darkness. A moth thudded softly against the glass, again and again, like it was chasing freedom it couldn't name. He thought about his father, back home in Georgia, out fixing busted AC units in the thick August heat, never complaining, never late, never absent. He thought about the endless summers of cracked rackets and patchy court lines chalked out by hand. They had built their skills from scraps, and now, they stood one night away from a match that could erase every sideways glance they'd ever swallowed. This wasn't just about tennis. It was about memory, legacy. A match wasn't just scored. It was etched. Saturday morning arrived under a ceiling of swollen clouds. The sky hung heavy, trapping heat in its belly like a warning, but no one complained. Campers arrived early, out of obligation, but because word had gotten out. Bryant versus Trask. First round. It wasn't just a game, it was theater. Some whispered that Coach Wexler had rigged the draw to send a message. If he had, he wasn't letting on. He stood near the tournament desk, his whistle idle on his chest, his face unreadable, but his eyes didn't blink. Court 2 had been reserved. Shade tents stood like sentinels on either end, water coolers brimming. Parents pressed against the fences. Some leaned on folding chairs, others stood with crossed arms and pursed lips. Then the Trasks arrived. Sierra, in a crisp white visor, her braid tucked tight. Caleb wore compression sleeves like armor, even though he hadn't used them all week. They moved together like royalty. Meanwhile, Yalin and Khalil walked in side by side, same black duffel, same worn grips. Their clothes didn't match. Their energy did. Coach Wexler stepped into the center with his clipboard. Match format, best of 3 sets. 8-game pro format, tiebreak at 6. Line calls are your own. I expect effort, respect, clean play. Any questions? They all nodded. Only Yalin said, yes sir. Wexler flipped a coin. Heads. Trasks to serve. Caleb stepped up. His first serve came in hot 110 miles per hour. Straight down the tee. Yalin caught the edge of it, but the ball flew long. Second serve, wide and clean. 15 love, Caleb barked. But Khalil was already dialing in. Next point, he read the slice early and hammered a return right between them. Sierra dove missed 15 all. From the crowd a soft murmur. 2 more points, and the Trasks took game 1. Then it was Khalil's turn. His serve came like silk, controlled, smooth, calculated. Sierra charged the net, misread a drop shot, and dumped it into the net. The Bryant twins took game 2 in under 2 minutes. By game 3, the rhythm had found them. The match became a dance. No yelling, no fist pumps. Just cold precision. Sierra's snark vanished. Caleb's chest-high swagger shrank inch by inch. What they were up against wasn't noise, it was pressure. And the Bryant twins applied it. Like surgeons, not SLEDEHAMMERS. By the 5th game, it was 3-2 Bryant. Coach Wexler moved along the back fence like a general surveying troops. He hadn't spoken, but his body leaned forward with each serve. At one point, Khalil sprinted back for a deep lob, twisted midair, and dropped a forehand within an inch of the line. Yalin shouted. Caleb stepped forward, arms crossed. Out. Tension rose like steam. Sierra backed him up. It was long. Jalen's voice stayed level. You calling it out? Caleb nodded. Yup. Wexler cleared his throat. Play it again, he said, voice flat. The Bryants didn't argue, just reset. That was the difference. They didn't flinch. Sierra pushed the net harder after that, trying to tilt the match with aggression. But aggression without timing, it only fed the Bryants' plan. They lobbed her picked corners, soft dinks, laser passes. With every clean point, the crowd murmured louder. A woman near the fence said softly, these boys, they don't miss. At 5-3, Khalil stepped up to serve for the set. First serve, ace, second rally. Then Sierra sent it long. 30 love, Caleb tried to rush a short ball, mishit. 40 love, final point, hole served wide. Sierra sliced, Yalin volleyed. Caleb stretched, sent it wide. Game set 6-3. The Bryant twins walked to their bench quietly. No celebration. Sierra yanked her visor off and slammed it into her bag. Across the back court, Coach Wexler finally smiled. Barely a whisper of a grin, but the match wasn't over. And what came next wouldn't just test their skill, but everything they had learned about staying calm when the world didn't want you to win. Sierra didn't flinch this time, but she also wasn't backing down. As the ball landed far outside the line, she snapped, loud and sharp. That was out and you know it, she barked. Yalin turned, surprise in his eyes. You didn't even see it land, he replied evenly. Sierra squared her shoulders. Then let's get the supervisor out here, she said, challenging him with her glare. Yalin glanced at Khalil, who gave a slow, silent shake of his head. No need to escalate. Yalin exhaled and turned back toward the baseline. Replay the point, he muttered. Sierra's lips twisted into a brittle smirk, but the damage was already done. The air had shifted. The next rally carried the weight of their frustration. On a fast exchange at the net, Caleb drove the ball hard not toward the open court, but straight into Khalil's chest. It struck with a dull, solid thud, dropping him back a step. The audience gasped. No apology followed. Caleb simply turned away, adjusting the strings of his racket, as if it had been part of the game plan. Yalin rushed to Khalil's side. You all right? He asked. Khalil winced, hand on his chest, but nodded. Fine. Coach Wexler approached from the sideline, concern briefly flickering across his face. You good, Bryant? Caleb stood near the service line, bouncing the ball lightly off his racket frame. It was a legal shot, he said flatly. Wexler gave a tight nod. Nobody said it wasn't. Then he looked back to Khalil. Let me know if you need a minute. Khalil rolled his shoulder once. I'm good. They kept playing, but Sierra's composure was slipping fast. Her serve fell apart double, faults piling up, rushed shots landing wide or into the net. The Bryant twins exploited it, pulling her into exhausting rallies that tested every ounce of her patience. After every mistake, she snapped at Caleb under her breath. You're not helping, she hissed. He fired back without looking at her. Then make something happen. Their unity was unraveling, thread by thread. Meanwhile, Yolan and Halil spoke only in glances and nods. Their communication was effortless, fluid. One would signal the next shot, the other would pivot his stance, seamless as choreography. Parents watching from the stands murmured now, not just in admiration, but in realization. They're not just talented. One man in a red visor whispered to another. They're smart. Court shifted to 5-2-2. Khalil stepped up to serve. He delivered two blazing winners, then smashed an overhead into the far corner. Sierra swung too late and dropped to her knees, hands digging into the clay in frustration. It was matchpoint. Jalen took position at the baseline.com, and still, he served clean. Caleb lunged and returned but too high. Khalil was already rushing forward. With a swift snap of his wrist, he drove the ball into the deep left pocket. No one moved. Silence. Not a cheer, not a sound. Just the stunned quiet of a crowd that didn't know how to process what they'd just seen. Then one clap broke through. Then another. A slow rising wave of applause spread across the court, not from expectation, but from recognition. Coach Wexler didn't join in. Arms folded, he simply watched as the twins approached the net. Yalan and Khalil extended their hands. Caleb met it briefly. No eye contact. Sierra lingered, pretending to adjust her ponytail before walking away. But the Bryant twins didn't follow. They stood on the court like they'd always belonged there, and for the first time, no one dared to argue. They didn't say much afterward, not because they had nothing to say, but because what they felt didn't need words. Their walk off the court was steady, composed, no gloating, no celebration. The Trasks had vanished into the crowd, silent in defeat like kids who'd never lost before and didn't know how to carry the weight of it. At the bench, Khalil tossed his towel over one shoulder while Yolan zipped up their shared duffel, the same old bag they'd used since middle school. The zipper still squeaked, the strap still frayed, but today, it felt heavier, not from gear, but from meaning. You think they'll ever talk to us again? Khalil asked, more amused than bothered. Galen shrugged. They weren't talking to us before. Coach Wexler intercepted them halfway back to the dorms. He didn't smile, but something had shifted in his eyes. Respect, quiet and earned. Strong match, he said. You stayed locked in. That matters. Yalan nodded. Thanks. Khalil simply gave a brief nod, then Wexler paused. If either of you ever want to go further than regionals. You've got more than just skill. You've got discipline. He hesitated, glancing back at the court. Not everyone learns that. The twins let it sit. No need to speak. Lunch that day was different. Not louder, just more relaxed. A few players nodded in their direction now. Nothing showy, just small gestures, silent acknowledgments. The kind that mark a shift from being watched to being seen. Mateo, a lanky left-hander from court 3, stopped by their table. He leaned in, offered a quiet fist bump. That second, serve crazy good. Appreciated, Yalan replied, bumping fists. Mateo moved on. Khalil chewed slowly. Feels weird. Yeah, Yalan said. Not bad, just new. Back in the dorms, they found another note taped to their door. No handwriting this time. Cleanly typed, it read, you proved it. Not just with your game, with your character. Respect. No signature. Just folded and taped neatly to the frame. Khalil held it for a moment, then carefully slid it into his bag. You keeping it? Yalan asked. Yeah, Khalil said. For when we forget how much this meant. That evening, the courts glowed under the setting sun. No drills, no pressure. Just the twins again, moving like they had when they first picked up rackets behind a chain-link fence back home. Rally after rally, smooth as breath. No score to chase. No audience to please. Just rhythm. Coach Wexler watched from the bleachers. He didn't interrupt. For once, he didn't need to. Because this time, finally, the court belonged to them. The final showdown didn't feel like a summer camp match anymore. It pulsed with something heavier, more electric, like destiny tightening its grip. Coach Wexler stood still at the front of the rec hall, a sheet of paper shaking just slightly. Between his fingers, his voice carried low and deliberate. Finals. Team 4, Yalan and Khalil Bryant, versus Team 2, Mason Bradley and Zoe Hart. A hush swept through the room. The Bryant twins locked eyes for a second, not in fear, not even surprise, just calm. No smirks, no fists bumped. They'd come for this, not for trophies or claps, but for something they couldn't name, only feel. Mason stood tall and steady, A wall of muscle and focus. Zoe bounced on her feet, quick and sharp as a whip. This would be a battle tough, tight, demanding. But the Bryants hadn't flown across states for easy. They were built for moments like this. As the match kicked off, even the wind seemed to pause. The first few rallies were long and grinding chess matches at sprinting speed. Every angle tested, every switch seamless. Zoe carved open the scoreboard with a slicing cross-court shot that danced just past Halil's frame. Then Mason lobbed one so high and deep it forced Yolan into a wild backward sprint just to slap it back in play. The crowd gasped. But the twins didn't flinch. They blinked, recalibrated, and then began their quiet storm. They didn't raise their voices or call out plays. They just moved to minds. One rhythm, wordless and woven like threads from the same cloth. Drop shots fell like whispers. Serves curved wide and mean. At the net, they dared their opponents to blink first. At 4-3, the crowd that had once watched politely began clapping between points. Not because they favored one team, but because excellence was undeniable. Khalil fired a baseline return, so crisp it drew a wave of cheers. Yalon faked a heavy forehand and gently lofted a lob instead. More applause. When they took the first set 6-4, even Coach Wexler, rigid and unreadable all week, found himself clapping. Slow, firm, respectful. They hadn't asked for admiration. But now, no one could look away. The second set burned hotter. Zoe and Mason came out like something had been lit under their feet. They weren't just here to participate, they were coming for the crown. Their serves gained teeth, they cut angles harder, rushed the net with fire in their eyes. At 2-1, Mason hammered a forehand past Halil's dive. The crowd roared. Khalil jogged back to the baseline, chest rising fast, but not from panic. Focus. He glanced over, Yolan tossed him the ball. We good? He asked. Khalil nodded once. They're overreaching. That was enough. Yolan grinned. Game on. What followed wasn't flashy. It was surgical. The twins slowed the match to their tempo, made each point stretch like taffy. They drew out rallies. From 4 hits to 12. From 12 to 20. They ran Zoe until her shoes scraped the paint at the sideline. They baited Mason into shots just a hair too rushed. The tide began to shift. At 3-2, momentum cracked. Yolan delivered a clean volley. Khalil sliced a backhand so fine it kissed the line. One father near the fence muttered, "They don't force errors, they let you beat yourself." Another nodded. "That ain't luck, that's cold discipline." Coach Wexler stood at the edge of the court, arms folded but no longer rigid. His eyes, though, held something like pride. These boys weren't a camp story anymore. They were blueprint breakers, kids who made grown folks take notes. At 5-4, the match stood at the edge of the cliff. Yolan held the ball for the final serve game. Across the net, Mason crouched low. Ready? Zoe rocked on her heels. The air hung thick. First serve wide, untouched. Ace 15 love. Second serve returned, deep by Mason. But Khalil saw it coming, darted in, and smacked a clean forehand winner. 30 love. The crowd started leaning forward again. Yolan served Agenlet. Fourth serve fault. The tension clicked. Yolan inhaled, shut his eyes, reset. His next serve was clean, sharp. Zoe returned it high, a little late. Khalil sprinted forward and sliced the volley down the sideline. 40 love. Championship point. Jalen bounced the ball 3 times. Slow, no tricks, no flair. He tossed it not to high end, drove a flat serve down the line. Mason caught it, but barely. The return floated too high. Khalil didn't pause. He sprang upward, caught it midair, and pounded it into the far left corner. Winner. For a moment, no one moved. Then the court erupted. Cheers broke from every side. Parents, coaches, even players who hadn't said a word to them in 2 weeks. Yolan let his racket fall from his hand. Arms loose. Khalil reached out, grabbed him, and pulled him into a tight embrace. No words passed between them. They didn't need any. Across the net, Mason and Zoe approached. Hands extended, no hesitation. "This time, y'all were locked in," Mason said, out of breath but solid. "Seriously," Zoe added with a tired smile. "That was something else. The shake was real this time. No cold shoulder, no show. Just respect earned." Coach Wexler approached as they packed up their bags. His steps were slower now. "Measured, too," he began, then paused, searching for what felt honest. "That was pro-level tennis. But more than that, you kept your heads. You adapted, you led." The twins looked up. He nodded. "I'll be calling some folks. USTA, maybe a couple junior scouts. No promises, but they need to see this." Yolan raised an eyebrow. "We didn't come here looking for scouts." "I know," Wexler said quietly. "That's what makes you worth their time." He extended a hand, not stiff and cold this time, but with weight behind it. They shook. That evening, with the sunset bleeding across the sky, and the courts finally quiet, the boys sat on the steps outside their dorm room. No interviews, no spotlights, just 2 kids sore-armed and soulful. "Think Pops is off work yet?" Khalil asked. Keown checked his phone. "Yeah," Khalil smirked. "You want to call? Or let him hear it on the news?" They both laughed. Yolan tapped the number. It rang once. Their father answered, voice steady. How'd it go? Yalin exhaled. We won. Silence, then a low breath. You boys did more than win, Gregory said. You reminded people who we are. Khalil leaned close to the phone, and who we've always been. By sunrise, the vans had returned. Campers were hugging, swapping numbers, tossing inside jokes across suitcases. Yalin and Khalil stood near their father's truck, the same spot he'd dropped them off 2 weeks before. Same kids, but reshaped in ways no mirror could reflect. As they lifted their bags into the back, a voice called out, Sierra Trask. She approached with her arms folded, not angry, just uncertain. I didn't think you'd win, she admitted. Yalin didn't blink. We knew. She hesitated. You played clean. Khalil raised an eyebrow. You say that like it's surprising. She sighed. I guess I didn't think I'd lose to people who didn't care what anyone thought. Yalin gave her a long look. That's why you did. They turned toward the truck. Gregory started the engine, but glanced back once. You proud? He asked. Yeah, Yalin said. But we're not done, Khalil added. Their father smiled. Good. The court's not going anywhere. And they pulled off. The gates of Hawthorne Tennis Academy clicked shut behind them, but the echoes of what they'd done would linger longer than any scoreboard. Some stories aren't about proving others wrong. They're about proving yourself right.